So we have a major escalation in the nationwide legal fight to dismantle the NFA after the $0 tax change. The DOJ recently tried to defend the NFA and even attempted to sneak in new evidence late in this case. But now the plaintiffs have fired back with a new brief. And what this filing makes very clear is that the ATF is not running the NFA as a shall issue system. It is exercising open-ended discretion. So let's break down what just happened and developed in this case because of this new evidence. Now, before we jump into this video, if you want to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to subscribe. You can also click the like button. That just tells the algorithm that you appreciate this content, and so it shares it with more people. I also want to thank one of the main supporters and sponsors of this channel, which is 1st Phorm. You guys know that 1st Phorm's an amazing company. They support the Second Amendment and what we talk about here on the channel, but also they have amazing supplements. So if you're trying to get healthier, if you're on a New Year's resolution, I highly recommend you check out some of their supplements. I use their supplements every day and I've lost about 20 pounds since the beginning of this year. And so again, if you're interested, check them out using the link down below. And right now we're doing something special where if you order using that link, if you order supplements and things like that, you can be entered into a random drawing to win some channel merch. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, we have some interesting developments in the NFA challenge that sprung up in response to the new $0 tax. Now, briefly, let's talk about and kind of set the stage for what is going on in this case. Now, this case, developed and kind of arose after Congress reduced the NFA tax to $0. That tax now, is applied to suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and AOW. So it took the tax from $200 now to $0. Once the tax was eliminated, multiple groups, including GOA, Silencer Shop, Palmetto State Armory, and dozens of states filed a lawsuit against the ATF. Their core argument in this case is very simple. If there is no tax, then the NFA loses its constitutional foundation. There is no longer a taxing power to allow this type of restriction. In this case, both sides are now trying to win the case at summary judgment. The DOJ wants the court to uphold the NFA. The plaintiffs want the court to rule that the NFA's registration system is unconstitutional. And one of the DOJ's key defenses is this. They claim that the NFA operates like a shall issue licensing system, something that the Supreme Court said can be constitutional in Bruin. But that argument is now in serious trouble and is being countered by what the plaintiffs are presenting as evidence. After a briefing was already underway, the DOJ filed its reply and tried to introduce new ATF evidence. That evidence was meant to show that the system is still necessary and functioning properly, but here is the problem. Under the rules, you generally cannot introduce new evidence at the reply stage without permission, and the plaintiffs immediately challenged that. They also argued that the DOJ is trying to fix a weakness in this case after seeing the plaintiff's arguments. So in simple terms, they are trying to take a second bite at the apple. But also through this process, something else developed. The plaintiffs also submitted evidence countering what the ATF had tried to present, directly contradicting the ATF's claims that the NFA with the $0 tax is operating like a shall issue permit. The plaintiffs submitted a denial notice from the ATF where a person was told they needed a better reason for an SBR than them wanting to exercise their God-given rights. These filings and new evidence do something very important. It reinforces that the evidence they submitted is both newly discovered and directly relevant to how the NFA actually operates. The plaintiffs point out that they could have not, submitted this evidence earlier because the ATF's denial in this situation really didn't pop up until January 2026 with the new $0 tax process. So that is not old evidence that they're producing. This is real-time new proof that is developed because of the $0 tax and how this is currently functioning. And here's where things get kind of interesting and serious in this case. The plaintiffs highlight that the ATF denied an application because the applicant listed their reason as exercising my God-given right. Now, the ATF marked that, and they said in response that it was vague, not clear, and not a valid legal reason. And they denied that application because of that. And then when the applicant followed up, the ATF doubled down and demanded a different justification. Only after the applicant changed the language to something like all lawful purposes, home defense, did the ATF then approve that application, but they would not approve it when he said for his God-given rights. This counters the DOJ's main claim in this challenge. They told the court that the NFA is a shall issue system, but under Bruin, a shall issue system must have objective criteria, clear standards, and no open-ended discretion. What the plaintiffs are now showing with this new evidence is that this operates in the complete opposite way. The ATF is requiring subjective justifications, rejecting constitutionally protected reasons, and forcing applicants to phrase things in a way that the agency approves. That is not shall issue, that is pure discretion, which is not allowed under Bruin. Now, the DOJ tried to respond to this by saying this was simply a mistake that they made, but the plaintiffs dismantled that argument because they have proof that the ATF did not just make this error one time. This was a denial of the application, a refusal to correct that when the applicant, went back, and essentially the ATF doubled down, saying that the reason there was too vague. They needed a valid reason, and only after the change of reason, after he worded things different, did they finally approve that application. So the plaintiffs argued this wasn't a harmless mistake. It was evidence of how the system actually currently works. And this is the key point of the reply brief here made by the plaintiffs. Even if the ATF eventually reversed the denial, that does not fix the constitutional problem because the violation already occurred here. And more importantly, the system still operates this way. It still allows the ATF to deny applications based on undefined standards that they get to make up. That is exactly the kind of open-ended discretion that the Supreme Court rejected in Bruin. So here the DOJ and the ATF can't say that this operates as shall issue under Bruin because this system does not look like what they talked about in Bruin. So where does this leave us in this current challenge against the NFA based on the $0 tax? Well, we now have, of course, that $0 tax under the NFA through the big beautiful bill and the changes there. The DOJ is trying to defend the system with late evidence. The plaintiffs have challenged this procedurally, and now they have real-world proof that the ATF is exercising discretion over constitutional rights. So this case is no longer theoretical. It shows exactly how currently the NFA operates in practice. So this new reply brief is a big deal. It doesn't just respond to the DOJ's objections, but it also strengthens the plaintiff's core argument that the NFA is not a neutral registration system. It is a discretionary licensing regime that allows the government to deny constitutional rights based purely on discretion. Now the court has to decide whether that system can survive under the Constitution and also under what Bruin said. So that's the latest update in this nationwide NFA challenge. As soon as the court rules on these motions, as we get more information, as we get this to develop a little bit more, I will let you guys know. If you like this video and you'd like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is simply to like, comment, and subscribe. All of those things help to fuel the algorithm and just tells the algorithm that you appreciate this type of content, and so it shares it with more people. But as always, thank you so much for all of your support, and never forget this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.